Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to participate in this program. The objective of this talk is simple: to share with you what a high school student has learned about Alzheimer's disease, life, and love from his grandmother who developed and ultimately died from Alzheimer's disease. Many of my earliest memories are of my grandmother cooking scrumptious meals and baking special desserts, reading countless stories to me, helping me to sound out words when I was learning to read, and gently guiding my hand as I learned to write first block letters and then cursive. She not only came to my music performances and athletic events, as did many grandparents, but she also came along to my piano lessons and sat alongside of me as I practiced the same songs over and over again, and sat on the bleachers, watching and encouraging me as I practiced the same athletic drills over and over. I later found out that my grandmother's passion for education may have stemmed from the fact that, having grown up in war-torn Europe, she was the only girl from her tiny village to go to secondary school, and she never had the opportunity to go to college. Thus, she delighted in the educational experiences of her children and grandchildren. Her lack of formal education was invisible to me. She was a passionate educator to her grandchildren, and looking back, I can now see that she was also a passionate learner with me. About the time I entered 4th grade, my family noticed that my grandmother became less talkative and had less energy. She didn't plan ahead for large family meals the way she used to. She would ask the same question multiple times. She even started to forget holidays and birthdays, after so many years of faithfully remembering every holiday and every grandchild's birthday, with heartfelt, colorful cards containing special, personalized messages and drawings, along with some pocket money. But all this was just normal aging, right? She had worked hard her whole life, and she was approaching her golden years, so wasn't it understandable and appropriate that she slowed down and let the next generations take over some of her traditional activities? Unfortunately, my grandmother was never able to fully enjoy her golden years, as she so well deserved. As her memory slips became more pronounced, and she lost interest in the activities that she used to be passionate about, it was clear that something was wrong. After a thorough medical evaluation, my grandmother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and we were informed that while there are some medications that could help to treat some of the symptoms of the disease, there is no cure and no way to stop or significantly slow down the progression of this devastating disease. Over the ensuing years, as my grandmother's condition progressively declined, I learned firsthand about the profound impact of Alzheimer's disease, not only on the patients afflicted with the disease, but also on their families. My grandparents had what people of my generation may call an old-fashioned, traditional relationship. My grandmother took care of most all domestic matters, while my grandfather focused on his career as a university professor. In addition to taking care of the household duties, I remember my grandmother even packing for my grandfather when they went on trips, and she even lovingly picked out his socks for him to wear every day because his color blindness prevented him from picking out matching socks. Ever the absent-minded professor, my grandfather was known for forgetting where he had placed his glasses and even his pajamas. He would ask my grandmother if she knew where his glasses or pajamas were. She would always find the missing items. As Alzheimer's disease steadily robbed my grandmother of her ability to perform her usual activities of daily living, I witnessed the dramatic role reversal in my grandparents' marriage, as my grandfather, who loved his academic work so much that he rarely took even a day off for vacation, gave up his university position in order to care for his wife, who had selflessly cared for him during their 55-year marriage. Although my parents had begged my grandparents to move in with us, my grandfather felt it was best to keep my grandmother in the home she was used to. My family watched helplessly as my grandmother lost the ability to do her usual activities of daily living, became incontinent and unable to walk, lost her appetite and even her ability to swallow food. I just couldn't believe it. She'd been a cheerful, ever-optimistic, and energetic woman who had always loved learning about new things, a new song we heard on the radio, the newest book released by one of our favorite authors, a new plant we saw while taking a walk, a new kind of insect we saw crawling on the trunk of a tree. and now she seemed apathetic and depressed. What could we do to cheer her up, to engage her? As my family learned more about the effects of Alzheimer's, we learned that patients with this disease often have difficulty forming new memories, while memories from earlier in life may be relatively preserved. Two of my grandmother's long-standing passions had been reading and music, so we began reading well-known fairy tales to my grandmother in her native language and playing the piano for her. Even as her condition declined to the point where she became nonverbal, her eyes always brightened with these activities. The sounds she was able to make made it clear that she was understanding the storylines of the fairy tales that we were reading to her, and she knew when a story ended. She always did like a happy ending, and her satisfied smile at the end of each fairy tale made it clear she had enjoyed the reading. Similarly, when we played her favorite piano songs for her, she would smile and sway her body to and fro to the beat of the music. Our family spent hours every day reading to her and playing her favorite songs for her, and there was no doubt that she was thoroughly enjoying these activities. Some of my friends would ask me why I spent so much time reading stories to her day after day and playing piano pieces for her several times per day, since she forgot about these activities as soon as, or very soon after, I had completed them. The answer was simple. Seeing the awakened light in her eyes, the smile on her face, the swaying of her body enjoying the music, even if transient and not able to be remembered by her, was worth it. So what have I learned from my grandmother who taught me so much before she developed Alzheimer's disease and continued to teach me throughout her journey with this disease? Well, for one thing, I learned about the devastating effects of Alzheimer's disease on patients and their loved ones and the urgent need to find a cure for this disease. I strongly encourage everyone who is able to get involved in spreading awareness of the public health importance of this disease and supporting research to find a cure for this disease. Secondly, I learned that although at this time there is no cure and no way to stop or significantly slow down the progression of Alzheimer's disease, there is still much that can be done to enhance the quality of life of patients with this disease. Life is a series of moments, so if you can do an activity with patients that brings them joy for as many moments as possible, even if the patient won't be able to remember those moments later, you have enhanced that person's life because you have made those moments in that life not only bearable, but joyful. For those moments, you have been able to free the patient from the grips of the disease that binds them. Perhaps most importantly, being with my grandmother throughout her experience with Alzheimer's disease taught me about love. True love is completely unselfish. It does not seek a thank you or a pat on the back for deeds that are done, but rather bringing joy to a person you love is its own and is indeed the greatest reward. Thank you.